I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. Catholics get ready to lobby Albany. We'll go into the deep to talk about it.
We are representative. We're not here as a political bloc, but we have a moral responsibility to represent the good of our people to the elected representatives.
Plus, who killed Jesus? Pope Benedict tells us in a forthcoming book. We'll look at why his answer is receiving universal praise.
I think this is a very important statement. But one thing I think we need also to say is that this statement is not absolutely new.
And some students who are going places. We'll meet these scholarship winners.
My son got a full scholarship for 4 years, so that's going to be a very big help for us.
Well, good evening, and thanks so much for joining us tonight. Religious prejudice made its way into the headlines this week after a famous designer was arrested for making anti-Semitic remarks. John Galliano is a world-renowned designer with Dior. Police in Paris, though, put him behind bars for allegedly going on an anti-Jewish tirade in a local bar. Video later surfaced of Galliano in the same bar at a different time talking to a group of Italian women. Now, in that video, the designer says, quote, "I love Hitler, and people like you would be dead," among other things. Such remarks are a crime in France. If convicted, Galliano could face up to 6 months in prison and a fine of more than $30,000. Galliano later released a statement apologizing for his words. And while his actions brought about plenty of condemnation from the Jewish community, Pope Benedict has received nearly universal praise this week for the declaration in his latest book that the Jews did not kill Jesus. In the book, Jesus of Nazareth, Holy Week, the pontiff explains that in the gospel passage in which the Jews demanded Jesus be executed, the mob there represents the temple aristocracy of the time and not Jewish people as a whole. Well, here to talk more about this and its potential impact on Catholic-Jewish dialogue is the Vicar for Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs for the Brooklyn Diocese. He is Monsignor Guy Massey. Monsignor, thanks so much for being back.
Hello, good evening.
Appreciate you being here. First of all, your take on what the Pope had to say. Is this just reiterating something that has actually been a part of church teaching for a long, long time?
What the Pope said in this book is said by Vatican II. Vatican II was a World Church Council that was held from 1963 to the beginning of till October of 65, in which many things changed in the Catholic Church. Among them was a document called Nostra Aetate, which is translated in our time. And in that document, we have what the Church's position is from that point on towards the Jewish people. And being taught by a council, this became doctrinal, you see. And in it, that document, under the pontificates of both John the 23rd and Paul the 6th, that is, said that we cannot hold the Jews responsible for the death of Christ without making some distinction. And in the book, the Pope reiterates this very clearly and singles out temple aristocracy, different leaders, sure, not the people in general, not all of the Jews living in Jerusalem of the time or all the Jews living in the world at that particular time.
Sure.
And I think that comes very much from what we have learned from scripture study and the historical development, what was the historical situation of the time, etc. Sure. So that's extremely important.
Right. So what has led to sort of this, misunderstanding about what the scripture actually means there? Is it just a misreading of the scripture, you think?
Well, I think, on Good Friday, if you read the Passion of John, we often get the term, the Jews demanded this, and the Jews wanted this, and the Jews wanted that. Or on Easter Day or in the Easter season, we get the apostles were in the room with the doors locked for fear of the Jews. These terms, certainly these are sacred and ancient texts, they need to be nuanced even from the pulpit as to what exactly that means. If we go to the sacred text, we will find in Holy Week a reading from John where the temple authority wants to arrest Jesus, but they fear because the crowd was hanging on to his every word. Yeah. In today's gospel, Jesus is approached by the authorities after the cleansing of the temple. And the authorities are afraid because the people saw him teaching with authority. What becomes of those people? What becomes of the people who held on to his every word, vis-a-vis the religious leadership of the time? And that religious leadership needs to be somewhat distinguished also. Sure. Remember, you had Sadducees and Pharisees, and you had different breakdowns among them. And so to make a blanket statement that all of the Jews did this, no. That some, yes.
Right.
So as a result, I think this is a very important statement. But one thing I think we need also to say is that this statement is not absolutely new.
When we're looking at Catholic-Jewish dialogue, I know that Jewish communities, I was reading an article earlier, I believe this was dealing specifically with Russia, but Jewish communities, I think, across the world have been saying, this is great, and this is going to lead to greater, better dialogue between the Jewish people and the Catholic Church. How is that, and what kind of impact do you think this is going to have?
Well, it's been there, for all these years since Vatican II, and it has had an effect. Now, it has had its effect in Europe, where you could see, people being arrested for saying these anti-Semitic things. It's had certainly effect in the United States. But I think it was very important for this book to come out and for this Pope to reiterate this, because I have met priests even from third world countries who, when they are in my house and they see that we are having a meeting with Jewish leaders, or there are people who are friends of mine who happen to be Jewish, it is the first time they have perhaps met Jewish people on a social level. And yet they will tell me, yes, but they killed Christ. And that was as late as the summer of 2009.
Wow.
So now, what happened here, and why does that anti-Semitism or anti-Jewishness trickle down? And I think that in those areas it has to do with the reading of the sacred text without the preacher or the priest giving the proper catechesis of where the church is today.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's obviously something that a discussion that will continue, because it's been going on for hundreds of years already, and thousands of years even. So, Monsignor Massey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
really
you very
appreciate
much.
your time. Well, stay tuned. There is much more currents coming up. Budget cuts in New York could mean the end for some Catholic charities' senior centers in the city. We'll have that story, plus the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, a group of students who are going places and continuing their Catholic education. But first, let's have a look at today's headlines. Well, Christians in Pakistan took to the streets on Friday as government minister Shahbaz Bhatti was laid to rest. Bhatti, a Catholic, was Pakistan's minister for minorities and the only Christian in the country's cabinet. He was assassinated on Wednesday in his car on his way to work. At today's funeral mass, Pakistan's prime minister promised that those responsible would be brought to justice. Bhatti had received death threats after calling for repeal of the country's blasphemy laws. Christians on the streets, meanwhile, demanded justice and expressed anger about the discrimination they face in predominantly Muslim Pakistan. Well, closer to home here, New York City says more than 100 senior centers are on the chopping block as a result of Governor Andrew Cuomo's budget proposal. The Bloomberg administration today revealed which centers would close if the state legislature approved that budget. Among them, 8 centers run by Catholic Charities of Brooklyn and Queens. In a statement, Catholic Charities says the closings would be detrimental for the more than 1,100 seniors who rely on the centers for hot meals, activities, services, and support. Now, to see the complete statement, which includes a list of the Catholic Charities centers that could close, head on over to our website, currentsny.net. Well, turning now to Maryland. After some delay, a House committee there voted by a slim 2-vote margin to approve a bill to legalize same-sex marriage. That bill now goes to the floor of Maryland's Assembly, where its fate is unclear. Governor Martin O'Malley says, though, that he would sign the bill if it reaches his desk. The bishops in Maryland's 3 dioceses have encouraged Catholics to make their voices heard in opposition to the bill. An alarming and grave injustice. That is what U.S. Bishops' Conference President Archbishop Timothy Dolan is saying about the Obama administration's decision to no longer defend the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA. Now, that act, among other things, defines marriage as between one man and one woman. In a statement, Dolan says DOMA is not unjust discrimination, but rather it affirms and protects the time-tested and unalterable meaning of marriages. Well, meanwhile, U.S. bishops are urging Illinois Governor Pat Quinn to sign a bill to end the death penalty in that state. Quinn, who is Catholic, says his decision will be based on his conscience. The bill would not only end the death penalty in Illinois, it would also provide funding for law enforcement training and services for families of murder victims. Writing on behalf of U.S. bishops, Stockton, California Bishop Stephen Blair said the legislation would help to begin building a culture of life in this country. In South Dakota, a bill placing new restrictions on abortion awaits the signature of that state's governor. South Dakota's Senate approved the legislation, which would require women to wait 72 hours and meet with a doctor before having an abortion. The Catholic Diocese of Sioux Falls supported that bill, saying it would ensure mothers are fully aware of the grave decision to terminate the most sacred gift of life. Well, from Wisconsin, Governor Scott Walker said he would issue 1,500 layoff notices today if at least one of the state's 14 senators who are missing in action does not return. Legislation that would strip unions of many of their collective bargaining rights is being held up in Wisconsin's Senate because there are not enough senators present to call for a vote.
I believe the Senate Democrats know this full well, that if we do not get to have those savings effective April 1st, I mentioned back then, and it still is true today, that the alternative is to find some $30 million of savings elsewhere, and that's the equivalent of 1,500 layoffs. 1,500 layoffs, which I've said all along is unacceptable.
Well, meanwhile, the protesters who had occupied Wisconsin's state capitol building around the clock were finally forced to leave last night. That came after a judge ruled they could only be inside the building during normal business hours. Wisconsin's bishops have weighed in as well. Milwaukee Archbishop Jerome Listecki calling on all sides to move beyond divisive words and actions and work together. Well, from Michigan now, a community of Catholic nuns says it is backing out of a deal to buy the John Paul II Cultural Center in Washington, D.C. The Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist, say while it was determined the building could be renovated, they felt pursuing it would not be a prudent use of their limited resources. The sisters also said they did not have the financial support to undertake the project. Well, back to Maryland now, where a new survey shows that a growing number of teens and young adults are remaining virgins. The survey from the Centers for Disease Control shows 29% of males ages 15 to 24, and 27% of females say they've not had any sexual contact with another person. That is up from 22% of both sexes in 2002. That was the last time this study was conducted. Turning now to Utah, a Brigham Young University basketball player has been suspended from the team after violating the Mormon-run school's honor code. Reports say Brandon Davies, considered BYU's top player, admitted to having premarital sex with his girlfriend. The school confirmed the suspension but did not say what part of the honor code Davies violated. A spokesman says Davies' future at the school has yet to be determined. And finally, a group of warlocks has a message for Charlie Sheen. You're not one of us. The embattled Sheen has referred to himself as a warlock in recent interviews. A real-life warlock tells the Salem Gazette that he and others are planning a ritual on Sunday to save Sheen and stop having themselves slandered. CBS canceled this season of Sheen's sitcom 2.5 Men last week after Sheen slammed one of the show's creators during a radio interview. Well, stay tuned. There's much more currents coming up. Just ahead, Catholics in New York are heading to the state's capital. We'll find out what they have to say.
Same-sex marriage is an issue that's going to come up. The rollback of the statute of limitations, which is another issue. All the cutbacks, again, will also the educational money.
Welcome back. Religion and politics. Many people say the two are like oil and water. They do not and should not mix. But often the two do collide, especially on issues of morality, life, and social justice. Next week, Catholic bishops from across the state of New York will travel to Albany to meet with lawmakers for the annual Catholic Public Policy Day. Called Catholics at the Capitol, the New York State Catholic Conference is encouraging parishioners to get on the bus to, quote, put your Catholic faith into action. Now, one person Catholics will not be meeting with next week, though, is Governor Andrew Cuomo. I had a chance to talk about that and more when I spoke to Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio for this week's Into the Deep. Well, Bishop DiMarzio, thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Good to be here.
Well, Catholic Lobby Day in Albany coming up just in a few days here, next week on Tuesday, or Monday, Tuesday, I believe
Right.
you're going up to Albany. Tell the viewers a little bit about that and maybe some of the issues that you'll be discussing while you're there.
This is an annual event. It's going on for many, many years. The State Catholic Conference, again, represents all the dioceses of the state to the elected officials in Albany. It's our way of doing a systematic presentation of the issues that are of interest and are pertinent to the Catholic and population and to the general population. And usually, on this one day a year, we invite parishioners from all the dioceses to come. At that time, we usually have a liturgy where we're honoring some of the people who are active in public life and who have been active in the church in that area. But also, it's a day where we do actually visit the legislators in their offices on a systematic basis, and also have presentations on the issues that are really pertinent at that particular time. Usually it's a press conference, etc. So it's a full day and a very important day. The State Catholic Conference in New York is well organized. Perhaps one of the best things they do is they have a web-based participation of all people in the state, Catholics in the state, who wish to be members of the it's a network actually, and they give you systematic updates on what legislation we are interested in. It gives you an easy way of just pressing a couple of buttons and you'll get a letter or an email generated to your representative. You'll know who exactly is your representative. Put your zip code in, you'll get the right person. So it's really well done, and it's something that people should participate in.
Well, this technology is an amazing thing, isn't it?
It's really
Well, you mentioned meeting with lawmakers and things when you go to Albany. One thing that actually made the news today was one person that you won't be meeting with, and that is Governor Andrew Cuomo. Tell me a little bit about that situation. I know that he did come under some criticism from someone who is, I believe, an advisor at the Vatican, not really a Vatican official or spokesman, but an advisor.
Again, I can only tell what I've heard on the radio and the news, and it's very sketchy, but for some reason he seems to be unhappy with what was said. What was said basically, and again, going on news reports, that since he seems to be living with somebody, he should not be receiving community. Well, I don't know if that's a fact or if that what was said, so it's a little bit but that's what's been said in the press of why he's not meeting with us, which seems a bit strange, you know. We're not going there on any kind of a pastoral visit. We're talking about political situation in the state. He's the governor, or whoever is the governor we meet with. The state of New York is a little bit different from other places. I mean, I have experience in New Jersey as bishop there, and auxiliary, and every year all of the bishops met with the governor, the head of the Senate, and head of the Assembly. That's not the case here in New York.
Right.
We don't get that privilege from everybody. The openness is here. It's not there. They have time. They haven't got time. It's a little bit of a strange political situation in regard to the church, where you've got almost 40% of the people in the state are Catholics. I think they just feel that the church can be ignored, and we've got really a problem with that. We've got to really say we are representative. We're not here as a political bloc, but we have a moral responsibility to represent the good of our people to the elected representatives. So that's our responsibility, and maybe we can work this out eventually.
Sure. Now, and speaking of that, what are maybe some of the issues that are kind of on the agenda, same-sex marriage and other things I know that we've mentioned in the past?
Well, again, clearly same-sex marriage is an issue that's going to come up. It seems to be the possibility even of the rollback of the statute of limitations, which is another issue of interest to us. All the cutbacks, again, were also the educational money. There are many, many things of which we are directly involved in that we want to address at different levels.
Sure. And very quickly, is there any sort of transportation for people who might want to go? Do they have provide buses and things?
Some parishes have buses. I think calling the Chancery office, Monsignor Harrington's office, would be able to tell us where people are organizing to go up to.
Absolutely.
Catholic Charities also is one of the major participants. So Catholic Charities also will be another source of finding out how to get there and where to go.
Great. Well, we can link folks up to that over on the website.
Very good.
We will do that. Bishop DiMarzio, thank you so much for being
welcome.
here. Appreciate it. And we do have more on Catholic Public Policy Day in Albany over on our blog. Just go to currentsny.net. Click on Riding the Wave. Stay tuned. There's much more currents coming up. When we return, these students are all winners who are continuing their Catholic education.
I chose to go to a Catholic high school too, to continue what I've learned here at MPB.
Well, finally tonight, no matter how uncivil the discourse might get at our dinner tables or in the halls of Congress, one thing most Americans can agree on is the value and importance of education. And we may not always agree on the best way to teach it, test it, or fund it, but there are not many people out there who will tell you that the future belongs to high school dropouts. Well, in a win for Catholic education, Most Precious Blood School in Long Island City, Queens, that is, just awarded high school scholarships to their 8th grade graduates this morning. And while that totally qualifies as good news, what's really remarkable is the percentage of students receiving those scholarships. Take a look.
1/3 of our 8th grade this year won scholarships, totaling over $175,000 worth of scholarships to Catholic high schools. That's very impressive.
Many of them have been here for 10 years together, learning collaboratively. And so when 10 of them won, which is like, if you think of it, a pizza pie, it's 1/3, we're very proud of them.
My son got a full scholarship for 4 years, so that's going to be a very big help for us.
It's a huge benefit for us. We have a daughter just in starting pre-K next year in Most Precious Blood as well. So, I mean, we have another daughter to educate for the next, 14, 15 years.
We love to share in all of their accomplishments. We tell them, you really need to share your talents with the world. That's what God wanted.
I love religion. I love learning about it. So I had a great time and a good education in this Catholic school. So I thought I wanted to continue on my Catholic education.
I love to help others, and that's been nurtured here at MPB, and they've been really supportive, and it's great.
A big portion of their day is with us, and we want them to feel welcome. We want the door to be open.
Children quite often start here when they're 3 years old. They start in our nursery program and stay with us all the way through 8th grade.
And each year the children build on their knowledge.
Having a good 8th grade teacher really doesn't mean anything if you don't also have a good kindergarten teacher.
One of the reasons I chose to go to a Catholic high school too is to continue what I've learned here at MPB.
I'm so close with the teachers. It's like a big family, so I'm a little nervous.
Sometimes I feel like I want to stay because of my friends, but sometimes you just need to move on because you're eager to go into your future.
I'm really excited about going to high school. I mean, this school has been really great and all, but moving on to a greater adventure like over at St. John's, it's really exciting.
I am excited, but it's going to be hard to leave this school because I've been here since pre-K, but I am really excited to go to high school.
We're going to miss who they are and the fact that they've been with us all these years, but we're also incredibly happy because we know that we have prepared them for the future.
When students come from Catholic grammar schools into St. John's Prep, we find that they are very prepared academically, and they have a discipline that is something that Catholic education has really been synonymous with over the years.
We share our faith with the children, and they share theirs with us.
And that makes a difference in their lives. They have a connection to the church, and through that connection, they find it a little easier to imitate the Lord Jesus.
I was raised Catholic and my family is really into the faith.
Both myself and my husband grew up in Ireland with a strong Catholic background, and I think it's very important to instill that in our children.
It teaches us a lot of good moral values.
When I was looking for a school for my children, I have a master's in education, I visited many programs, public, charters, and Catholic. And I chose Catholic because it's a way of life. It's not just an education.
They mold your child to the best that every parent would like to have. And I think, not that I'm comparing the other one school to the other, but when it comes to Catholic education, I'll go for it.
And go for it. And those kids are definitely going for it too, getting some great marks there in school, as my parents would probably say. Get some good marks in school. And it shows when you apply yourself, good things can happen, and you keep on keeping on, and you're at the next level before you know it. Well, that wraps up another edition of Currents. Now, as always, you can check us out online. We're over at currentsny.net. You can also find us on Facebook, and if you have an idea for us, maybe you just want to drop us a line, say hi, you can send us an email. Our email address is dropusaline, that's all one word, at currentsny.net. Until next time, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.